weren't expecting to see that. Has anybody seen the old movie Wall Street? I say old movie, it's 1987 with Charlie Sheen, and is that Kirk Douglas or Michael Douglas? I thought of this as I was doing this sermon on Amos. By the way, Jerry Hamby told me this better be a good sermon. He's missing the British Open, so I'm going to try to make this not only short, but I always try to make it relevant for us today. But if I see you practicing your swing or tapping your watch incessantly, I'll know that it's time to wrap this up. The title of the sermon is, How Many Yachts Can You Water Ski Behind? And it's a line that you'll see here in just a little while. Bud Fox is a stockbroker in Manhattan, in New York. And he desperately wants to be rich, and he wants to be part of the exclusive inner circle of the super wealthy. And he wants to get in with Michael Douglas, who's Gordon Gekko. Gordon Gekko, if you remember, I think this was in the 80s, the age of the corporate raiders, who would go into companies and basically chop them up, sell off pieces, and raid the pension funds and steal all the people who had worked for the company for decades, many generations of families, steal the pension fund and leave the company of just a husk of what it was before. Let's start with a short video. Kate, can you?
The new law of evolution in corporate America seems to be survival of the unfittest. Well, in my book, you either do it right or you get eliminated. In the last 7 deals that I've been involved with, there were 2.5 million stockholders who have made a pre-tax profit of $12 billion. Thank you. I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teller paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thank you very much.
I get my next one too. Not a lot has changed, has it? Amos was not a popular guy. Amos went up to the northern kingdom and he said, you guys are so rich, and yet you trade and trample on the poor for a little bit of sweepings that you sell with the wheat, that these people try to gather enough food at the end of the day to be able to survive. And by the way, this is not directed, I think, if you're sitting in the pew right now and you're saying, well, I don't do this, so this isn't really directed at me, I really don't need to listen to it. Well, you don't have to listen to it if you don't want to, but this is a corporate message that Amos is delivering, not just to one person or not just to us. What does this have to do with us as we listen for the word of the Lord? Amos goes up to, first he compares Israel to a basket of ripe fruit. And if you follow literature throughout the years, Shakespeare, a lot of people talk about a basket of ripe fruit, or the roses on your trellis are dying. And it's basically, all the way back 2,700 years ago, this metaphor was being used as, you're ripe, but you're about to turn rotten. You're beautiful now, but you're about to turn rotten. So he goes up to the northern kingdom, and he compares the women to the fat cows of Bashan. And I'm sure the men did not all have memberships at Gold's Gym either. This is not something just against women. But what the women liked to do is they were addicted to wine. and they like to cover their fat bodies in oils, expensive perfumes, while the poor went without any food hardly at all. Can I get one more? The poor were taken advantage of, and the rich got richer and richer. The rich had their summer palaces and their winter palaces, while the middle class was slowly decimated, what there was of it. This is Jeff Bezos' yacht. I pick on Jeff Bezos a lot, and I don't really need to, but he just makes it so easy. His super yacht requires a support yacht. How much is enough, Amos seems to be saying to us. How much is enough? I'll tell you a quick story. My stepson Winston went to work for Whole Foods. And when he was working for Whole Foods, he was on a schedule that had him, every day he was on pins and needles. Is he going to have to work that day or the next day? And they would bring him in for 3 to 4 hours and then cut him loose. They would call the night before and say, we need you from 11 to 1. We need you from 8 to 10. We need you for a full shift the next day. And if he didn't come in, he would get a written notice, a warning notice, and so many warning notices that you rack up, you get fired. A good friend of his was a single mom, and she was hoping to build up enough seniority with Whole Foods to where she could finally crack that. What was the threshold for full-time employment? Was it 30 hours or 30?
30.
Say again?
30.
30? And she would always seem to get something like 27, 28. But she was convinced that she was one day going to get up to 30 hours so that she could qualify for health insurance. She was a single mom, she had a small child, and every time she took her kid to the doctor, it nearly bankrupted her. But she hung in there. Winston eventually went to work in the finance section of the Whole Foods where he was working, and he discovered that Whole Foods, and I think a lot of grocery stores, I don't want to pick just on Whole Foods at all, they have a computer system where they manage their people, and you can hire as many part-time people as you want and grind them into powder, working them 2, 3, 4 hours a day, 5, 6 days a week, but you'll never get to full-time employment. And the computer system managed the people in their hours. And this is what Amos seems to be talking about. And can I get one more? And what does he also rail against? It seems like the wealthy and the priests and the people who are super well connected say, thank you, God, for blessing us. Because after all, because we're so wealthy and we're doing so well, God must be on our side, right? God must be blessing us because we've got it right. And then they say, we welcome the coming day of the Lord. Because we've got it figured out, we're right, we're righteous. We welcome the day that the Lord comes. If there's one thing that seems to irritate God, it's when people seem to say, we're the ones who have it all figured out, and those other people don't. Look what he does with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, people who say we're the ones that do it right. What's the next? And so the judgment is this. God seems to be saying, I tried heat. I tried drought. I tried plagues. And nothing got your attention. What does it take to get your attention? Imagine a world where we could no longer hear the word of the Lord. What kind of a world would that be for you? For me, it would be worse than death itself. And this is what Amos seems to be saying. Is it that God's going to pack up all the good words into a suitcase and ride off down Interstate 84? Or is it going to get to the point to where we corporately as a people can no longer hear the good words that God is trying to speak? I'll leave it to you whether you think that we're approaching that point. I think we're not us at Kirkpatrick Church. I think as a culture, a nation, a society, the world, Christianity, I think we're approaching that point. Many of us. In this video, I want you to notice Bud Fox confronts Gordon Gekko, and Bud becomes a prophet. Last week, one of our passages was from Deuteronomy, if you can recall it. The word or the commandment is not up in heaven so that we have to say who can go and get it for us. It's not across the sea. It's within your mind and it's within your heart. It's on your lips. We intrinsically know when something is wrong. You know, when a baby sees its mother or father under stress or duress, you notice how like a 6-month or an 8-month-old or a 12-month-old will start crying? Even at that early age, we know when something is wrong and it's not right. Bud is the prophet here, and watch what Gordon Gekko does. No matter what, he can't hear what Bud is saying. He has got to the point where he can no longer hear the words of love, of righteousness, and of justice.
Yes, I'd like to change that playlist. But you can't go in there, it's in a meeting.
Sounds like a really ingenious way for us to... I don't know, we had a meeting scheduled today, Sport.
I didn't either. I think we should talk.
Would you gentlemen excuse us for a second, please?
Won't you come this way, John?
Thank you, Alex. What the hell do you want?
I just found out about the garage sale on at Bluestone. Why?
Last night I was reading Rudy the story of Winnie the Pooh and the honey pot. You know what happened? He stuck his nose in the pot once too often. He got stuck.
Maybe I ought to read it Pinocchio. I thought that you were going to turn Blue Star around, not upside down.
We were walking around blind like a cane, pal. Fool and his money are lucky enough to get together in the first place.
But why do you need to wreck this company?
Because it's wreckable, all right? I took another look at it and I changed my mind.
These people lose their jobs, they got nowhere to go. My father has worked there for 24 years. I gave him my word.
It's all about bucks, kid. That's this conversation. Hey, buddy, you're still going to be president, all right? And when the time comes, you're going to parachute out a rich man. With the money you're going to make, your dad's never going to have to work another day in his life.
So tell me, Gordon, when does it all end, huh? How many yachts do you water ski behind? How much is enough?
It's not a question of enough, pal. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Money is selfish and lost or made simply transferred from one perception to another. Like magic. This painting here, I bought it 10 years ago for $60,000. I can sell it today for $600. The illusion has become real. And the more real it becomes, the more desperate they want it. Capitalism at its finest.
How much is enough?
The richest 1% of this country owns half our country's wealth, $5 trillion. 1/3 of that comes from hard work, 2/3 comes from inheritance, interest on interest accumulating widows' idiot sons. You know what I do? Stock and real estate speculation. It's bullshit. You got 90% of the American public out there with little or no net worth. I create nothing. I own. We make the rules, pal. The news, war, peace, famine, upheaval, price of paperclip. We pick that rabbit out of the hat while everybody's out there wondering how the hell we did it. Now, you're not naive enough to think we're living in a democracy, are you, buddy? It's the free market. And you're part of it. Yeah. You got that killer instinct.
I'm sorry about that one word that was in there. I thought I went through this pretty carefully. You probably heard things like that before, but I apologize. As I start to wrap up, you all pay me to worry about stuff like this, and so I worry about it. I worry about the word of the Lord today. I worry about whether we're here, whether we're coasting along the way in Western Europe, where cathedrals and churches are really more like museums supported by people walking in and dropping coins into a large box. Where's the word of the Lord now, even in our churches? This is recently, Creflo Dollar, that last one, Kate. Creflo Dollar, has his people buying a $65 million jet and criticizing the congregation for not giving enough money. Is that the word of the Lord? It's a huge church, huge organization. Is this the word of the Lord? The next one, you probably heard about, I think it was $600,000 or $800,000 in cash found behind the wall of a toilet in the Lakewood church. And it was supposedly from a robbery, but when I hear that, I think, can you imagine? They didn't miss it. They didn't miss it for years. And yet the church just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the words that come are the words of abundance, and we are doing so well because God has blessed us. Is that the word of the Lord? Can I get one more? I try to listen for the word of the Lord, and I don't know exactly whether I hear the word of the Lord, whether I'm correct or not. But I listen for things that tell me that this is not what Jesus talked about. And it comes from places of power or fear, places of wealth, of jets and hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bathroom wall that go unmissed. Arrogance that say we've got everything figured out and those other people don't quite have it right. For me, I listen for the words of the Lord that come from a place of humility. Amos, thankfully, at the end says, don't worry, everything's going to be okay, because I said all those horrible words trying to get your attention. The Lord is always going to be gracious to all of you, even when you don't deserve it and I don't deserve it. This to me is the word of the Lord. Humility, peace, love God, love your neighbor, grace. As I wrap up, I think, what's the point for us today? As a little church of KMCC, I think we need to continue to listen to the words that come from this place as we gather here every Sunday. Have the courage to speak them to ourselves, and the courage to claw back the famine that is outside those doors and speak these words from the Lord to a world that desperately, desperately